Hey, everybody. Hello, hello. We are live. Hey, everybody. It is Alexia with Coco Life.Black. No, you're not in the wrong spot. You are exactly where you need to be. Thank you for tuning in to What's the Chew. More coming soon. But as you're joining us, please just kick back and listen to this amazing music, Optimistic by Sounds of Blackness. Y'all remember this one. Come on, y'all. You know what they say. Where you gotta keep your head. Come on, y'all. Hey. In the midst of sorrow, but we don't have to worry about that. Come on, everybody. Come on, y'all. Y'all can't see them, but they backstage. Come on, vibe with me. I know y'all can hear me. Let me see what y'all got. Wait till y'all get into this conversation, everybody. Start your watch parties. Join this intergenerational dialogue. And wait till you see who is going to be moderating. Our moderator, she's amazing. She's phenomenal. She's historic. She is legacy in living color. Just an amazing woman who lives, okay? She lives to help us keep our head to the sky, okay, y'all? Come on, y'all. Hey, I see y'all coming in. Drop a heart in the comments if you're happy to be here. If you're thankful for another breath, drop your hearts in the comments. Start your watch parties. Come on, everybody. We've been through a lot as a people, but trauma and struggle is not our only story, right? We are a people that know about what it means to thrive and not just survive. So without further ado, I am going to bring our moderator on for this conversation, the wonderful, beautiful, amazing, that's right, Miss LaFern, Patricia Evelyn Green Rogers. Hey.
Hi, great to have you here. I'm Patricia Evelyn Green Rogers, and this is The Chew, or this is What's the Chew. And What's the Chew is an intergenerational dialogue among women, African American women. And What's the Chew will probe conversations that we have been thinking about, but maybe we're shy about talking about. But these women on this panel are not shy at all. So just lay back, listen to what they're saying, and we want you to get engaged in the dialogue as well.
That's right, everybody. Thank you so much again. As Patricia mentioned, this is an intergenerational call and response dialogue. I know she mentioned it before, but we are in episode 4. Patricia, can you believe it? Episode 4?
Yeah, the first episodes were about culture, and we addressed 3 topics tied to culture. This one, we're delving into health, and we will have 3 topics, 3 different Sundays tied to health. We were going to talk about some hot potato issues today, like I said earlier. But like I said, it's all about knowledge sharing, and we are doing this for you with you in mind. And we want you to enjoy this experience and share it with so many others of your network so that we can get huge in terms of what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the best part, and I just want to ask you before we introduce our wonderful guest today, what was your favorite part of last week's conversation? I mean, it was so many amazing gems, so many amazing points of view that were shared. But what was your favorite part of that conversation?
My favorite part, well, I don't want to say that I had one favorite part because all of them were insightful. However, Valerie sticks in mind, Sister Valerie, because she had some history, some names of some of the fearless Black folks back in the day. I mean, days that were long ago before we even arrived here, that many of us didn't even know about. And you can, of course, get a recap of that. It's online at YouTube, so you can tune into YouTube to see just what Valerie and the other sisters were saying. But that by far was most important to me, because when we know our history, we know our story, and we won't be what other people call us.
That's right. It's one of those things about controlling the narrative. So again, we are so excited. And with that, we have got to get into this amazing conversation. But like Patricia said, if you want to catch wanting to go and catch the playback, being excited about sharing this amazing conversation around culture, health, education, and wealth, you're going to go to where? YouTube. You're going to do what? Type in Patricia Evelyn Green, and you're going to be able to watch the YouTube. You're going to share this with all of your network from Facebook and connect. And if they're not on Facebook, again, you got the YouTube channel. And you're also going to take this as an opportunity to engage yourself. So please feel free to drop your comments, drop your questions, all of those things into the chat as we welcome on our amazing guest for today. Say hello, everybody, to Ray. Say hey to T. Pearson. Say hello to Valerie. Say hello to LaFern. Say hey to Eric LaFarn. And say hello to Robin. Hey, everybody.
Hey, ladies.
Hey, everybody.
They are so practical. You know, we've been doing this Zoom thing for a long time, so they all know they muted themselves, but y'all can absolutely come off mute to say hello to all the wonderful people who are tuning in. We are super, again, excited about this conversation. But before, right, just briefly before we jump into the dialogue, I got a question, okay? Got a question for y'all. Now, this is a question that T and I have actually had with some of our other village members, okay? And you may have seen it if you follow the dialogue also that's going on. And I'm gonna put her on the spot. I'm gonna start with Robin Murphy for this one. But thinking about your friend, last week last week was National Best Friend Day. I think it was. Go best friend. That's my best friend.
That's my best friend.
Thinking about your best friend and who you are to your village, your family, and all of that. In their toiletry bag, one item would you be in their toiletry bag? So everybody else got a little time, but you got 5 seconds. What one item would you be in the toiletry bag?
I would be that little jar of Vaseline.
Ooh, nice. Okay.
And I say that because I am pretty multi-purpose. So if you need this, I can help you with this. If you need that, I can help you with that. If you're in a pinch, you want blah, 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 I could do that. So, that little jar of Vaseline does a billion different things.
Awesome. So it's kind of like, hey, everybody who's tuning in. I know you're not watching Hollywood Squares, though we will be on there soon.
Period.
You are tuning into episode 4 of What's the Chew, an intergenerational call and response dialogue. For us, by us. It is Black women. We are having this conversation all centered around culture, health, education, and wealth. So now I'm going to go up to the top the top on my screen, we'll say. Ray, give us 5 seconds. What item are you in the toiletry bag? What are you?
I definitely would be that red lipstick.
Ooh, Ruby Woo? You my
Just
woo?
the courage to go through every situation. That's me. I'm
All
sitting
right.
there encouraging you. I could be your best friend, your best cheerleader. So that's me, the red lipstick.
Awesome. Okay. T, coming in hot.
I was trying to find. So.
Uh-oh. Here we go.
I was trying to find a post. Listen, I put it up on my post a couple weeks ago, and I was going to try to find a post to read what some people said that I was to them. But I think the consensus is that I'm actually the extra magnum contraceptive that would be in the bottom of the toiletry bag because it comes in handy when you need it in clutch moments. And, I'm the come through kid. So
she is definitely the come through kid. In the moment, you like, ooh.
In the clutch bag.
Right. You be like, dang, I didn't even know I had it and I need it. Bang, there it is. There I go. See, you don't even know you need a tea till you had a tea and don't have one.
Yeah. You never know. Okay. All right. So then let's go to Valerie. Valerie, toiletry bag. What are you?
How do you follow that one? All right.
You don't.
I was mad she called me second. I thought she was going to make me go last. I was surprised.
I hope I am sort of the vanity mirror in your bag. I try to be an encourager. Robin can weigh in. I don't know. I try to be this. I try to affirm and encourage and help you to see yourself as even better than you are. And so I hope that I'm that mirror in your bag.
I love that.
You are so right, girl. You are right.
Thank you. I love Vaseline, Rob. That was good.
That was good. Okay. And we will go down to L. Hey, baby mom. Hi, Blue Jay. Yes, with the co-host.
Hey, baby Blue. Hey, Blue Jay.
Say hi.
Right. And put her name on the screen.
I think that oh, there she is. She's saying hi. I think that I would be the hand sanitizer, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm exactly what you need when you need it. And I think that for a lot of people, I'm that safe space that they need. And I'm going to come with them and I'm going to be, very blunt and very honest, but I'm safe. I help to keep them safe in the space in which we talk. I'm never going to repeat anything. I'm always going to be there for them. So I'm a nice little safe space. So I think I would be hand sanitizer.
So it might burn a little bit, but it's safe.
Right.
It's safe, but it's for your good. It may burn.
It's for your good. Get them germs off you when you come over here.
Audience, you can play with us as well. So, audience, what are you in the toiletry bag? Go ahead and drop those comments in. Last but certainly not least, LaFon, what are you in the toiletry bag? Oh, wait, I'm mute.
She's muted. Is she muted?
Yeah, there she is.
I'm here. I'm the bag itself. I'm carrying it all. I'm going to have the lipstick. I'm going to have the Vaseline. I'm going to have it all. My best friend got all of me.
Hey, Miss LaFon, I ain't come to play with you in this game.
Listen.
Y'all could be the Vaseline and the toiletry and the sanitizer, but baby, I'm the bag. She says I'm the bag, baby.
And can I say, and Patricia, you know, I consider you the bag as well, but please weigh in on what you would consider yourself. But I think that was so appropriate, especially given the legacy, again, living legacy that you're creating and have created. I think that is amazing.
Patricia, not the bag.
But what are you? What do you consider yourself?
I'm going to be creative, LaFon, and say I'm the Nag Champa.
The who?
Nag Champa. It's a body oil that connects people because every time I wear my Nag Champa, I don't care where I am, people stop me and ask me, what am I wearing?
I seen that at the oil stand. I know how to spell it in my head too.
Incense too.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay.
No, you say it do what though? What do it do?
It's a body oil. I have it on now, but y'all can't smell it.
I smelled it when you put your hand up there.
Right. When you put your,
it's a body oil. It has Indian kinds of fragrances, but it's healthy and it smells so good. I mean, it's a different aroma. Get it? No, I should buy all of y'all one. I'm gonna
that. You know what? Come on.
Let me drop my address in this chat. Let me add my address in this private chat.
You see that? Oprah's not the only person giving away things, y'all.
Don't do that. She ain't tell the audience she giving them all one. Don't make them get. Don't have them checking their
mail. She gave y'all the name. She gave y'all the name.
And a sister in Columbia, Maryland, makes it from her kitchen.
I'm 20 minutes from Columbia, Maryland. Send me her information.
Awesome.
But you know what, Alexia? I think Mom Patricia. She the bag, but you know what? In this situation, she's the string that ties the bag together because she connected all of the bag resources. So that's what I'm a champion up for her to be the string.
And I would definitely put her as the person carrying the bag because she is the one that continues, like a quarterback. She continues to help us to move forward in that. So as you're thinking about, and those of you who are tuning in, whether live or to the playback, guess what? If you were thinking to yourself, dang, what am I? You know what? Ping into some of your village people, because sometimes we don't know what we mean to other people. And then to the village, that's echoing that sentiment. Tell people what they mean to you. And guess what? If you don't know and nobody's telling you, that might be a moment of clarity. That might be that, you know, you want to take a step back and just really try to figure out what your position is and what part you're playing. And with that, I think it's a great segue again into this amazing conversation. So I'm going to hand it back over to you, Patricia, to get this dialogue going.
All right. Thank you so much. And I'm excited about how you're going to respond to these questions. And the first one goes to LaFon. So your question is, collective trauma from centuries of violent oppression can be passed down through generations. One way that trauma is passed down is when we inherit unhealthy coping mechanisms to deal with our stressors. We may have been taught to ease our suffering with alcohol, drugs, and cigarettes, all of which significantly disrupt our immune health and compromise overall health. However, we can take charge of our health literacy and relearn healthy coping mechanisms. What are some steps we can take toward better health, LaFawn?
Okay, thank you. Hello, ladies. I'm so glad to be here on this panel with you. And Patricia, question number one, health. Let's talk about health. When I think about health, I think about the mental, physical, and spiritual well-being. And the steps that I feel that we should take are broken into three broad categories. They are preventive care, self-care, and community care. When we talk about preventive care, the main thing is that we need to take responsibility for our own health. Having a primary physician to help us look at our overall picture is a great thing. Regular exams, I strongly encourage them. That will help us prevent and catch diseases at an earlier time. And there are many others, but preventive is number one. Self-care. Love you. Love all of you. Love whose you are. Choose to be happy and pay attention to your mental health. Know the stressors and get help when you need help. Set boundaries. Boundaries is important. It will block out a lot of stress. Eat healthy, of course. You want to set your realistic fitness goals, and you want to follow your bedtime routine, and get help for those weak areas. And community. We've got to care for one another. We've got to be there for one another. Socialization and groups activities, it's a must. We want to share our resources, share our knowledge. We want to encourage family support. And we really want to participate in blood drives, become a donor. If you need help, follow a mentor or get a coach. All of this will help us, and I think are great steps.
Well, that's great. And what I saw through the common thread through what you were saying was a holistic approach to our health care, which will be addressed by one of the other panelists later on in the discussion. So thank you for that.
Welcome.
Yes, awesome. And does anybody else have any other points of reference or feedback they would like to add to that question? As you were reading it or stating the question, I should say, Patricia, what are some steps we can take toward better health? I thought about my days working in specifically for different carriers in the industry. And oftentimes what we heard was that, it's not healthcare, right? They call it healthcare, but it's really sick care. And I know we're going to get into more conversation, around that, but just any other thoughts on this one? I'm going to lift up some of the things that came in the audience real quick, which is one, being more proactive versus reactive. That is key. And that's oftentimes how we can kind of take back some of that control, if you will, is to not waiting until we get the diagnosis or prognosis, but, being in front of it. Another thing that came up as well is many of us only seek assistance once something begins to go wrong, right? And typically it's like your brakes, right? When you first hear the squeaking, it's like, oh, my brakes are going bad. But before you get to the point where your brakes need to be changed, there's been some sort of piece happening. Any other thoughts around that? Yes, Ray.
Yes, I like how you touched on getting a good night's rest, or I think you said a bedtime routine, because I think a lot of us boast on, I went to sleep late and woke up early and got back to it. And it's like, why? Just get a good night's rest. It promotes health so much. So I like that you included that in self-care.
Likewise. Really good point, Ray. And I agree. We used to say, or a lot of people say, especially as it relates to the entrepreneurship endeavors, like, go to bed late nights, early mornings. And that's not necessarily the impression that we want to leave as it relates to it. So I just got to get into, because I had some more thoughts that came up as we were thinking about it, especially since we have witnessed such intense debates like on social media, right? There's been so many issues, and even myself, quite honestly, as I've started my own journey around morbid obesity. There's all kinds of criticism in our community, especially. And then there's a lot of fat shaming that goes on. But then on the flip side, we also see a lot of people, and Monique used to be one of them, skinny heifers, skinny women are evil type thing, until she decided that it wasn't just about physique, but physical and emotional health, positive health. But we see a lot of debate on that. So, Ray, since you just actually brought up a really good point, question for you around what are the health implications like of this debate? Kind of what are the health implications, one, and then two, like what are your thoughts on that come up around the whole like BMI conversation? You know how I hear a lot of people say, oh, BMI, that's not for us as Black people. That's not for us. So we don't got to worry about that. What are your thoughts? What you think? Wait, are you muted? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I already said a lot of good stuff, y'all missed. No. I think there's a lot of things. I think we should look at obesity as more of a result of a lot of things versus what it can bring to your body. Historically, our food hasn't been the healthiest as a culture. Soul food is, a lot of butter, cheese. So, and even though we have healthier alternatives now, DNA remembers. So when you see someone obese, it could be hereditary. That could be, one reason that someone could be obese, because Big Mama, she had lard, but she did not have a lot of nutritional education. So, and she also had a lot of health problems that we really don't talk about as a community: high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, even cancer, stroke, gout, a lot of things, including obesity. Hence why we call her Big Mama. There was this study by Nadine Burke Harris in California, and she came up with this ACE score. And ACE stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that, but the more traumatic your childhood is, the higher your ACE score is. So Adverse Childhood Experiences. And the higher, of course, your ACE score is, the more traumatic your childhood is, the more you are likely to have health problems and mental health problems, which also lead to a lot of obesity. Even depending on different foods for coping, for comfort during hard times, that leads to obesity. And the people that have had traumatic childhoods may end up in food deserts, communities that have food deserts, which are communities that have that lack like healthy and fresh food options. And so, in case no one knows what food deserts are, so I think that we've focused on surviving for so long as a community that we really need to focus on thriving and changing and being a more conscious eater. And that will definitely assist in the obesity that plagues our community so much. We owe it to Big Mama.
Yes, we do. Many big, wonderful points, but I want to make sure the other guests that are here with us, does anyone want to wait? Well, first off, has everyone heard of the ACE score? Was that, and for you who are tuning in, if that was news for you, you can drop in the chat like, thanks, sis, for that knowledge, because again, that's what we're about. And again, ACE score, ACE, Adverse Childhood Experiences. T, I saw you put your finger up. What addition do you want to add to this piece?
As a person with a higher BMI, I agree with everything Ray just said. I think my childhood experiences definitely added on to me kind of growing in size over the years. Big Mama is like, even with the name itself, it was something that we kind of lifted up and glamorized. Or there's a couple jokes of like, if your arm swing, then you could cook good potato salad, or something like that. And so it's different things that we kind of make fun of when it comes to our health, but that's just the way that kind of the Black community has been for comedy and kind of make light of our situations a little bit more. But the childhood experiences definitely caused me to eat more. The different urban areas that I've lived in without access to healthier foods or having the affordability to buy the food that's healthier. Now that I'm kind of on this different health journey and eating a little more different and been a little more conscious about the things that I consume, the prices are real different. And even when my daughter and I were in the grocery store and we were kind of buying fruits and vegetables and things like that, and when the total came up, she was like, Mom, I see why people can't afford to eat healthy. And I was like, exactly. And so it's just even things like that of just making our kids even knowledgeable of the cost, but then explaining that the cost that we're paying today is not, it's still minimal compared to the price we'll pay over time with a high BMI and all of the health issues that come as a result of. So I definitely just wanted to weigh in on that.
Let me add too, we are what we eat.
Yeah.
And so also be conscious of the fact that even if you're in an urban area, I'm in a rural area, you can create an urban garden. Ray, do you have a garden?
No, I just have a lot of plants.
Okay.
Is that what you usually see? Yes, I just have a lot of plants.
Okay.
But
I wanted to say and what Tay, to piggyback off what Tay said, to be more conscious of what you eat. Sometimes when someone asks you, like, what are you having for dinner? And you'll say, I'm having, you'll name either the meat first or you'll name the starch first. But if you name the vegetable first, then you're more conscious of, okay, it's on my plate. So kale with a side of chicken and rice. I would.
Yeah.
I like that.
Changing the narrative.
Just have more of a mindset of vegetables and fruits.
So let's move. Thank you for that. And let's move to this third quite detailed question that Valerie, our scholar, is going to answer.
Not me.
When talking about Black people's health, we should not overlook our mental health. Centuries of oppression and cumulative disadvantages for Blacks from slavery to mass incarceration have resulted in Black people still adversely impacted by racism, whether it's living in poverty with limited food options, worn out schools, lower paying jobs with more difficult working conditions, or living in a perpetual guarded state with the threat that any encounter without provocation could turn to a fatal conflict. So, Valerie, with all of this, can you talk with us about how, as a community, we can address mental health concerns?
Yes, and thank you so much to Ray and to Tay for reminding us that there is a definite connection between the emotional and the physical. And so many of the things, or a few of the things that I'll talk about, deal with the physical, although they impact the emotional and the mental. And so the first thing that I would say is we have to deal with this stigma of professional counseling and professional care, and we need to seek out care. There is a severe shortage of culturally competent psychiatrists who are highly trained to understand and deal with the kind of trauma that you've listed, Patricia, and that we experience. And so often our outcomes can be misdiagnoses and mistreatment. However, there are some resources. So I just want to give a couple, I love giving resources. The National Medical Association at nmanet.org, nmanet.org, provides resources for your area in terms of identifying culturally competent psychiatrists to help you to navigate some of the trauma and stress that we're dealing with. Also, those who have private insurance, the private insurance carrier often provides resources as well. And we are in Philadelphia. And so in Philadelphia, but I think other localities have the same resource. Philadelphia's Community Behavioral Health, it is cbhphilly.org, provides the same resources. And so I just want to stress that if you are experiencing the effects of stress, get professional help. And let's talk about it more so that we are dismantling the stigma that for so long has been associated with psychological and psychiatric care. But then there are things that we can do. We have inherited a legacy of agency and fortitude. So there's some things in addition to the professional help that we can do. One is just to meditate and pray, whatever your faith tradition leads you to in terms of centering, do the ritual, do the practice. And then refuse to sort of allow the media, because remember, much of the media is in the business of fueling your panic. but don't allow them to do it, right? Check in only periodically and only utilize and engage those outlets that provide balanced reporting, not those that are making money by keeping you in a state of panic. And then one thing that we keep saying over and over, and we keep saying it because it's true, just go to bed. You know, the less sleep we get, the higher risk of emotional disturbance and imbalance, and also disease. And that's just an easy one to do. We've heard the other one, eat right? I mean, our gut health impacts our mental health. And so the whole issue of vegetables, I mean, we know the rules. We just need to do the rules, really. Fruits and vegetables are our primary weapon in this fight for emotional balance. And then exercise is one that I think someone did mention. You know, the experts are still saying, try to do 30 minutes a day for our emotional health and for our physical health. And then just limiting, again, I'm going to go back to this sort of devices and television, guarding what is coming into your space. Because that, again, impacts how we feel, and how we feel impacts how we act. So those are just some of the self-care things we can do. But I think the primary message is, let's continue the dialogue so that we are dismantling the stigma associated with seeking professional care, and let's get the care that we need.
Thank you for that. And I just want to reiterate what you said about the media, the tell a vision of who we are. Because, you know, media is designed to sell a product. So when they're targeting us, they make us hate ourselves, then they make money off of our self-hatred. And that's vicious. And I think we have to be cognizant of that. And we don't need to buy into the stereotypes about us that really contribute to our poor health. So thank you very much for that. Any other insights on that question?
Agreed. I was just going to echo that sentiment, that it's important. And I love the way you kind of listed things out. I'm just going to lift up a few things from the audience that came in as well. And one of the pieces, it sounds like, Valerie, that really hit home for people is about guarding your space. Okay. Guard your space. Let social media be an outlet, an opportunity, not a weapon, right? So we want to make sure that it's not. So what's the term that they use? Like, even when drinking, use social media responsibly. When they say drink responsibly, but even Eartha say, yes, Kia, it's so important that we consider our generational trauma, which was something that Kia so graciously brought up, about acknowledging the stress that comes with the cultural competence aspect of mental health, and how it was kind of minimized for so long, the way we looked at it. So I just want to lift those pieces up. But from you all, the rest of you all, any other feedback that you want to give on this one? T?
I wanted to also add in, so I am also diagnosed with multiple mental health disorders or crisis, or I tell people I'm in a DSM hard. I got a couple pages, you know, front and back on some of them. But I think what Valerie one of the things I wanted to definitely make sure I lifted up again that Valerie said is just having a conversation about it. And like that conversation breaks down the stigma about what different things look like. And I remember I was teaching I do like a mentor program at elementary schools and middle schools and things like that. And so one of the classes I was speaking in was a 3rd grade class, probably about 2 years ago. And something happened with one of the little boys. He had like an episode in the class and kind of showed out. He wanted to be like the class clown. And I just was kind of giving him his stage to do it. But then someone yelled out, yeah, now he's just bipolar. He's bipolar. And so that kind of made me freeze, because that's one of my diagnoses, right? And so I said, well, what do you mean by that? He's like, oh, he's just crazy. He's bipolar. And like, you know, the people that's bipolar, they just crazy. And I was like, oh, they are? So what else do they do? So he gave me this whole list of things that in his mind he had created that folks who are bipolar, you know, exhibit. And so then I said, well, Dad, I must be missing a couple things, because I don't do none of that. And so he was like, well, what do you mean? I said, well, I'm bipolar too. And he was like, well, nah, Miss T, no, you're not. I said, but I am. And so I had to have a conversation with him, even in 3rd grade, about what bipolarism is and kind of what it looks like is different for different folks. But just in his third great mind, he had compiled this whole list of untruths about what that means. And so because he had it, he was able to say it out loud. Thus, the whole class kind of had a conversation about it. But I think if we kind of have those other conversations with our children and our communities, it kind of breaks down the stigma as well and makes folks reach out to get the assistance that they need without judgment or feeling judged.
T, thank you, T. That is so courageous. So that's the issue. People who have the story that you have and the resources that you have to offer often just are silent. And thank you for your courage, because I think that then encourages others to speak within their particular sphere. So thank you for your courage.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think all amazing points that everyone brought up. And so I think, that's why this conversation is important. And just a quick pivot to our resident nurse as well. I got to bring you into this conversation as well, Elle, because I think it's some major points that I know I can see the little wheels in your head just going and going. And so Elle comes to us with a wealth of experience too, especially in women's health. And so some of the things that kind of came up too was just thinking about like medical apartheid, right? That we've experienced and how from our experiences and the experiments that were done on us from slaves to the Tuskegee study, Henrietta Lacks, that was actually a story that I had not heard of until probably a couple of years ago. My husband Musa actually introduced me to it, and it was a whole movie done by Oprah and a couple other people about it. So if you have not heard of Henrietta Lacks, it's phenomenal, but she's the reason why we're able to survive in medical history, especially advancements in technology around cancer cell and research, has continued to evolve because of her. But she doesn't get that due, like many other things. But it brings to mind, right, between the sterilization of us as Black women, the systematic racism that plays into all of these things. And now here we are, we pivot, right, into present day COVID-19 and the need for vaccinations, the need for us to be able to try to stabilize things where they are. But our Black lives haven't always seemed to matter. Recognizing that, though, and the respect that we do hold for the healthcare, what do you think about why our community does not trust the vaccines, and especially given the mortality rates from the COVID-19? Why do you think it is highest in our community? Speak on that for us a little.
Honestly, I think that a lot of us are just weary, right? Because of that history, because of the cycle that continues to happen. We feel like we're just a part of one big experiment, right? And so I completely understand why some people would be hesitant, because it seems very new, right? It's just like, okay, we shut the world down last year in March. Now they already have vaccination. And when you read so I actually worked at a vaccination site for some time, giving out the vaccination. And when you read the form, it tells you that it's not approved by the FDA. So you're like, okay, this is new. I don't know anything about it. Tuskegee happened, Henrietta Lacks happened. They just killing us on the streets. And now you're trying to put something else in my body that's not even, we don't know how safe it is. And so I definitely think because of that historical, just like sentiment that's inside of us, we are a bit leery when it comes to receiving healthcare in any aspect. Like you said, I worked in women's health for a great number of years, and African-American women are more likely to die from childbirth and things that you just shouldn't die from nowadays. And so I definitely understand why folks in our community are very, very hesitant about receiving services from healthcare, especially as it relates to this new vaccination, which was actually one of the reasons why I decided to be a vaccinator. Because for one, I was not thinking anywhere close to getting it. And I wanted to get very up close and personal because I wanted to know more about it. And I love what the Black Doctors Consortium has done here in Philadelphia. They are amazing. It's literally a group of Black doctors and staff who do vaccination sites, and they're so amazing because they understand that as a community of Black people, we are very leery of this vaccination and just healthcare in general. And so what they've done is they created an organization that goes in different communities and informs and gives everyone more information, right? Because as a community, we just don't do blind trust. We don't, like, if somebody says, oh, take this vaccine, it's good for you, that doesn't work for us. We actually, the patients that I've come into contact with who have sat in my office are actually more comfortable with the fact that I tell them the truth. No, it's not approved by the FDA. We don't know exactly how long it's going to last. I'm running down all the things that we know and the things that we don't know. And at the end of talking to them, they're all very comfortable and confident because I gave them truth. That's really all we need. We've been lied to for so long and just kind of put on the back burner and made to seem like we don't care, we don't matter, that just that little bit of truth and transparency, it works well for us. So that's what I think.
Erica, I just want to mention, can I just throw in, because of my health communications background,
Sure.
I think that the importance of trusted messengers cannot be understated. That you are there and they see you first really does make a difference. The other thing we are afraid of a lot in the healthcare system, clinical trials, even though we know that we need to be more involved in clinical trials. If we see more people like us who are engaged, then it would make a difference. Also, we had a sister who was part of the team that created, I think, was it the AstraZeneca vaccine? I don't know which one. And that made a difference, that they reported the media that a Black woman was in the room.
She actually worked at UPenn, where I worked at giving vaccines. She worked at University of Pennsylvania Hospital here in Philadelphia. Yep.
So they have to recognize that if they want the stats to go up, they need to bring us to the table.
Absolutely, absolutely. And kind of along those lines too, if there's, and I know you gave a lot of information. So again, for any of the other guests or the audience, I'm going to lift up a few things that kind of came in there, like T mentioned, representation at the beginning makes a difference. Absolutely. One of the things also that came up from the audience is each of us, as we talk to each other, right? Just like Elle said, remove the criticism, and we just want to recognize an issue for what it is. Not put another guard on the defense. And the way to do that is to be able to talk to each other, right? To open up the lines of communication and know who your resources are too. Again, that you have, whether it's in us or other people in that conversation. So felt like that was a really important piece. And Elle, thank you for being also too on the ground, right? In the visible part, in the area where you can talk to people and make them feel comfortable, and having gotten vaccinated yourself as well, I think makes a major difference. I know that played into it. I called all my nurse friends and was like, all right, so, and my doctor friends was like, okay, so, because at first, now I'm not going to say Elle, but at first they was like, nah, I'm not, it's too quick. I'm not doing it. Nope. But then as time went on, they were like, no, actually, through my research, through being a part of this conversation and dialogue, we got a chance here. So whatever your reasons may be not to, that's totally up to you. But let it be informed. Whatever your decision is, get it or not, let it be informed in that regard too. So
and I think that's one of the biggest things, because like you said, I did get a lot of those phone calls like, you're doing the vaccine, what do you think about it? Because initially I wasn't sold on it. I just didn't feel comfortable. We were offered the vaccination in July, and I didn't get mine until March. And again, because I'm breastfeeding. So that's another aspect I was able to bring to my patients is, you know, I'm also breastfeeding, and we have pregnant women so I feel like me being a person who has a whole village of people who look to me for things like that, I needed to get in there and be more informed so that people can make an educated decision one way or the other. And for those who decided not to get it, I completely understand why not. For those who decided to get it, I completely understand why they did. So just kind of not really having a bias against it one way or another.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much, Patricia. Just one more thing before you jump back into, we got a lot of great comments, great stuff, even Kia G, so true. Just everyone kind of echoing these sentiments about making sure that we lift up this importance. So there you go.
Okay, well, this one should invite a lot of dialogue, and I want to be cognizant of the time. So I'm going to start with a sociologist. Charles Cooley coined the phrase the looking glass self, introduced in his work on human nature and social order. He posited that self-worth is influenced by others' perceptions. He offered three principal elements: the imagination of our appearance to the other person, the imagination of that person's judgment of our appearance, and the resulting feeling, which can be pride or shame. Now, let's look at Cooley's theory through how we as a culture have stratified based on skin color and the health implications. No doubt slavery influenced perception. However, mulattoes were also considered blacks by whites. And though all slaves were born to hurt, some writers argue that mulattoes were privileged relative to darker hued blacks. So, no doubt, generational privilege based on skin color is complex. So, Robin, would you handle that question?
Absolutely. I was actually really glad this was my question. Obviously, I'm a dark-skinned woman, right? And so much of what you said about the perceptions that we have was part of my reality for quite some time. But I do want to make sure that we step back into exactly what you said, where it was you imagine what people think, and then you imagine what people are saying. It's not your job to imagine anything about anybody else. It's your job to imagine what you can be. And so I think that theory, it makes sense, but we don't need to own it. We don't need to own any of that stuff. What I also recognize is growing up in the 60s and the 70s as a dark-skinned child, I grew up in New York City, and not being the preferred, I mean, when I was a teenager, all the girls that got the guys were the light-skinned girls, right? And then there was hierarchy. If you got to dark skin, but you had long hair, then you were in a different stratosphere than those of us who did not have the good hair kind of thing, right? So it all is about perception, but it also is how we build our own self-esteem and self-confidence. Because if you have that, if you've gotten to the point where you know exactly who you are, you know exactly what God made you for, and you know exactly how you are going to navigate this world, then you can put all of that aside. Now, granted, at 58, I'm not saying I was like this as an 18-year-old. I'm not even saying I was like this as a 28-year-old. However, I took the time to discover who I am so that other people's perceptions of who I am don't even matter. Do not matter. And if you can get to that point, and you can get to the point where you know who you are, then you don't have to imagine what anybody is feeling or anyone is thinking or what anyone is doing. Be confident in your competence in what you are doing, and you'll be fine. I remember I worked for many years for a very large national nonprofit, and I was the director of my department and had lots of phone conversations with people all across the country. And when it was time for us to get to our national meeting, our convention, I got my name tag on. Folks are like, "Oh, you're Robin." Yes, I am. I don't know what you imagined or what you were thinking, and I don't care. This is who I am. And so a little bit back to the colorism piece, I have taken up the mantle, like I have room in my life for other mantles, but I get really annoyed with how nude as a color is being portrayed in our society, in the fashion business, in the beauty business. And I promise you, if you search the hashtag nude is not a color, you will see something I've posted. I have not bought from certain companies anymore that use nude as a color, because nude is not a color. Everyone's nude is different. And if you're not going to put the array of colors out there, then I can't do business with you. There are folks that are finally starting to get it, but it took a long time. I didn't own a nude shoe, my nude, probably until 2020, 2019, 2020, because it didn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, we don't need to own the colorism. What we do need to own is our own competence, our own confidence, and push all of that aside, because, again, it's all about imagination.
What
And
about
something you mentioned?
Can I ask her this question? Because you are a counselor, and do you work with our little girls who have issues around this topic?
So I'm not a counselor, I'm a coach.
Oh, you're a coach. Okay.
However, I have not worked with young children around this. I have worked with grown women around it, though, because it takes time to even come to grips with it. I have to correct people all the time. They want to, now, granted, we are all Black, we are all African American, but don't use Black as a descriptor outside of that for me.
Right.
And so I tell people all the time, no, I'm sorry, I prefer dark.
Mm-hmm. You are who you define yourself to be.
And
exactly.
And one question that came up, I just want to lift up this question that got highlighted from Kia G. How do we as Blacks define beauty? Each generation will answer that differently. But now, just out of curiosity, like for you, because it is something that we should define within ourselves, right? As you mentioned. And so how would you define beauty for yourself?
So again, it took me a while. Because as a very young woman, I did not have that. I didn't necessarily see myself as beautiful. What has to happen is that you have to take everything about you and love that, all of it, and then see that as beautiful. Everybody's beautiful is going to be different. I don't believe that there's one definition of beauty. But I do know that until you understand and love who you are yourself, you're not going to see yourself as beautiful.
I have a question, Robin. Someone wants to know how you define nude.
Oh, so nude, the real definition of nude, and again, is why I push back about nude as a color, because the real definition of nude is whatever you see when you look at yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But what's happening is there are pantyhose out there called nude. There are shoes for days that are called nude, right? There are nail polishes that are called nude. None of it
don't look like me.
Nope. Nope.
And so I do my own little divesting. I'm not buying from particular companies that don't respect the fact that nude is not a color.
You bring up a good point about and we knew this would bring a lot of dialogue, right? But one of the things, as you talk about brands, right, embracing, so not that, and only because we're having this conversation, especially about Juneteenth is next week, Black-owned businesses, all of that kind of stuff. But Fenty, Riri, Rihanna, singer, songwriter, performer, all of that, actress. She launched this Fenty brand, right? And takes us from 0 to 1,000 in our community as it relates to shading, right, of nudes. Because when you look up nudes, what you should get is an array. And it honestly should be so vast that it's almost like pie. It just goes on and on and on and on and on. Like there's no ending because of the various shades. But when you talk about branding, the first thing that came to my mind was about the Fenty brand. So for anybody else on the panel, have there been any intentional purchases that you've made from brands, whether to not or to buy from, specifically based on how they represented you and your pigmentation and your shade of melanin? Any thoughts?
I definitely have, but I won't speak.
Yeah.
I've already said my piece.
Well, Valerie had a question.
I did, and I agree with you, Lexi. I have noticed that you're right, in that brand, and have actually tried to support, in addition to supporting just Black entrepreneurs, tried to support that brand. And so that gets to the point I was going to ask Robin this question. In addition to the self-work that we have to do, I think there's also a role for us in being advocates. Lexi, that's to your point, in terms of taking a stand and educating others. Robin and I have traveled to South Africa a few times. And while colorism here in the United States, sometimes it's unspoken, but we know it's real. There, we've experienced it very, very overtly, and just different treatment among the people in the same group. But I think that there's a rich opportunity to educate others about the origins of that and the sickness of that perspective. Robin, I was just wondering if maybe we could weigh in just a little bit about how we've used opportunities where we've seen it, particularly in South Africa, to speak truth to it and to try to, again, to say, wait a minute, guys, like, think about this. At its core is ridiculous and is part of the same consciousness that created sort of centuries of oppression that we've experienced, and then we're doing it to ourselves. So that was just something, not that we need another question, I'm sorry, but Rob, I just thought our experiences in South Africa was interesting.
Yes, you're right. And it's what was interesting there was it's very different from how we experience our Blackness here. Here in the US, typically, regardless of shade, we unite against the oppressor.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
In other parts of the world, though, the way they've been conditioned, because they're not coming from a slave descendant situation. So the way they've been conditioned is more about tribalism and more about who the oppressor prefers. So some of it is the same, but lots of it is different. And so for us, it was stark. It was like, what? Y'all are all, because here we are all Black. And there, in that particular context, that was not the case. Right. And so helping them, but they don't really get it because it's a very interesting experience. And I would love to see them start to make the shift to a more inclusive we against them than, and not necessarily against, but a more inclusive,
right,
brotherhood, sisterhood, community approach like we have here in the US.
And I am loving this great conversation that's happening in the chat. I'm just gonna but I just want to lift up a few things. Like even Ray mentioned, as a mother, how can you ensure that the next generation understands their beauty earlier than you did? And a lot of great support there with, like T said, just having this conversation, introducing it early, letting them see positive representation of all colors, because that's the piece too. And I'm not going to dwell on the doll test because I know where we're at on time, but things like that, right? The intentionality
to Crayola too, man. That box of crayons.
Yeah, like just showing them, the various colors that we exist in a positive way too.
So what I have had conversations with mothers of young girls about how they need to pay attention to what they present to their children. So I had to have this one young lady, I had to stop her from saying, "Oh my God, your hair is so long." No, your hair is growing, but it doesn't have to be long.
Yeah. Right, healthy.
And so I'm sorry, I am anti-children with extensions of any kind, because I think it cements in their minds that what they have is not good enough.
Right.
Too early. It's one thing to be 25 and putting extensions in because you've already made some decisions about who you are. But it upsets me to see it in children. So there's that. I think we need to help our young girls just embrace who they are. Kids will make comparisons about each other and, this one is this one is that. But we have to strengthen their love of who they are. I keep going back to that. You have to love who you are, and you have to teach your young daughters to love who they are, and not too early trying to blend in and assimilate all these other things.
Good point.
Yeah. And that's actually a really, I mean, all of them are great segues into continuation of this conversation. But on a last note, I'm thinking about last year, right? There was a lot of uncertainty, a lot of loneliness, a lot of deaths. It was stressful, right? This time last year, when we think back, many that we didn't even get a chance to lift up, didn't get a chance to really speak of the hashtag they became. But we think about Ahmaud Arbery just running, minding his own business. We think about Breonna Taylor and George Floyd and the names that continue to reign supreme. We think about in Philadelphia, a lot of the challenges that we have with law enforcement. And it really kind of makes you think about even like as our ancestors, and honoring the connection between the mind, the body, and the spirit, right? As a healing, right? There's many different things that we pursue to heal ourselves. Some self-medicate, some things, we're prescribed. I mean, it's the list goes on and on and on. But we are a people of natural healers, right? So I want to talk about T. I gotta hit you with this one, because I know this runs deep for you, generationally deep. But thinking about all the things that we've gone through, the trauma, the trials, and all of that, even thinking about the mental health, how do we reconnect with the holistic health practices of our ancestors that honestly weren't that long ago? Like, we don't have to go back beyond the Middle Passage to get to, these natural healing measures, but just thinking about that, how do we reconnect with that, especially as we go through like these harsh times? Talk on that.
I want to read something that I found in an article titled American Herbalism, Herbal Use by Enslaved Africans, and it's by Allison Morgan. So she says, plants brought more than healing to enslaved Africans. They brought light, flavor, connection, remembrance, and joy into the otherwise dire and cruel living conditions experienced under slavery and subsequent economic and social oppression. Herbalism was a daily practice of empowerment and healing for men and women alike, because there were very few options for healing, for healing. And so with that, I think it goes into just kind of our own, our organic history, right? And so even if we go back to like when Ray was talking about Big Mama had the cure for everything, whether it was, putting the potatoes in your sock or the onions in your sock for a cold, or, just kind of growing up in your own herbal garden. And so some of the earlier references for earlier herbalism use, it talked about how the slaves would become so familiar with their farmland, with their trees, with the forest land, the things that they can kind of daze off to kind of take them away from, what was going on at the time with them. But like you were saying, Alexia, like we don't even have to go back that far to talk about just normal use. Because if we talk about big pharmaceutical world, if we talk about the availability for natural healing dispensaries and places like that, those aren't necessarily readily available in certain communities. But there's a CVS, there's a Rite Aid, there's pain management doctors, because Western society has kind of got us away from the cures of the earth, or has labeled it as witchcraft, or has labeled it in ways of which us as Black people are going to, run away from it. Because if we don't understand it, then we're going to run away from it without understanding that it has all of these ancestral ties to us. And so I am a medicinal marijuana user, and I believe in the herb of the curing because I'm also a recovering pill addict. I'm a disabled vet who was addicted to all kinds of pain pills because of my military injuries. And for 20 years, the government pushed pills on me without any resolution for kind of getting to the ground root of the problem. But we're going to just push some pills. I was talking to Alexia earlier, and I have to go to the hospital when my pain level gets to a point of where like I can't sustain, because then I got to get an IV something, which is still not a narcotic, so it really doesn't do much, but it kind of helps me to be able to comprehend and understand that my addiction came from me being uprooted from what is some natural things that could have helped save me, which would have helped save my mental health, which would have probably caused me not to have obesity because I was taking pills and laying down and sleeping all day, because that's what narcotics make you do. It takes away your activity level. It makes your muscles decrease. It makes your blood pressure rise. All of these different side effects that you have to listen very intently to at the end of a commercial or read your whole pamphlet to understand. But they want you to be so pumped full of it. When I go to the emergency room and they're like, well, we're going to give you some pain meds. And I'm like, no, I don't need pain meds. And so they're like, well, what did you come for? And it's like, well, can you give me something that's not a narcotic? Like there's other medicine, right? And so sometimes even in my pain moment, it's weak because I'm still in recovery, right? And so I'm still at this weak point where it's like my body hurts, where if you offer me a Percocet at this moment, I would take it because my pain hurts so bad. But then I also realized that Percocet is something that is not naturally made. It's something synthetic. And when I went to rehab, I learned that it's synthetic heroin. And so I was addicted to a legal version of heroin. And so I can't look at myself any different than a heroin addict that's up here on the corner in Baltimore. He got his from the street. I got mine from the pharmacy. But the detox, I could tell you, was the same. When I went to rehab, they treated me and my roommate the same. She was a street addict. I got mine from CVS. You see what I'm saying? But because I have tapped into this medicinal field, I'll make sure I say that, right? But I've also been able to connect back to the natural grounding of just the earth. Some folks have all of these different views about marijuana and all of that stuff. But I can tell you, for me, it has saved me from not being an addict. It has saved me from not killing myself because pain makes you suicidal. It has made me be able to breathe and process through a day, even to get ready for this show because of the constant pain. But had I been taking a Percocet or taking the amount of the lot that I was taking, I would have been asleep and not here at all. And so I think that sometimes it's kind of the mind state and like the organizing of the narrative, if you will, of just as a Black community and as a Black culture of us kind of getting back to the things that once were, that Western society has taken us away from and made us kind of look at differently. So it goes back to everything we were saying, even back to the COVID and the vaccine. Knowledge is power, and education is key, and conversation is key, so that we can break these stigmas and be able to have all of these conversations, that we can chew on. I think I threw that in there. You see, I threw that back in there.
I love it. I love it
too.
Yes,
just to say, there's so many things that happened today that all of you said that we, Alexia, we need to put into little sound bites, little pieces, and use that as promotional tools, because it's women on now. I want to know how they're feeling about what they got, and have they ever had all of this in one setting? And then if you have not, and even if you have, I want you to encourage other women, other sisters to come on to this train with us. We're not here next week because of Father's Day, but we will be back week after next, same time.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I just wanted to say something to T. You've done what I started off saying. You took responsibility for your own health. And that's what we want to teach others. After you get that education and learn, take responsibility.
Yes, ma'am.
Congratulations.
I appreciate it.
Congratulations.
And I'm glad for that question. I know we short on time, but I just want to reach out to the folks that's on here that's watching that didn't know that, the government may be trying to make you an addict, and you may be an addict and don't know. It took me years to realize that I was an addict and didn't know, because I was able to explain away the part that I was taking the pills for pain. But try to be without a pill and see what it do to you. And if it make you go crazy, then sis, you're addicted. And you can reach out and get some help, because there's other things besides those pills that they stuffing down your throat. And they cause so much more damage than good in the long run. So that's my tip to you, the folks that's listening. And accountability is key, but responsibility and being your own advocate is another. So I still have everything that they telling me I need a pill for. I'm just finding other holistic ways to do it, to take care of the pain and be able to manage. So
absolutely. And I think a lot of that too that you mentioned, T, even goes to like our mental health that we talked about earlier today. So today's conversation with the emphasis on health. We know, again, this is episode 4 of What's the Chew, right? An intergenerational call and response dialogue centered around our experiences, your experiences, the experiences of Black women in culture, health, education, and wealth. As Patricia mentioned, we are not here next week in honor of fathers, all fathers, but especially our Black fathers. We want to lift them up too. And thank you so much again for tuning in. Patricia,
before
any final
they leave,
words?
yes,
Yeah,
final word. Chu,
Yeah.
you can see under our faces, the African American Heritage Association of Virginia is the host of this. And we want you to visit do we have the website handy? AAHAVA.org. Correct? Yes. AAHVA.org. And you'll learn more about what we're doing in addition to this by visiting and also becoming a member. And you can join at this point free. So join in membership with the African American Heritage Association and join us, please, every Sunday when we are having this kind of dialogue. Thank you for joining us.
That's right. Thank you so much again. We have the link in the chat for you to continue to follow. Thanks again for tuning in to episode 4 of What's the Chew. Enjoy your week. We'll catch you soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.